in the last election, putting all the weather conditions aside and everything like that for the moment, much of the traffic was backed up pretty far going towards Park Street, correct? Is that, did you get?
It was past Street and Drive.
Okay, so it was, it backed up pretty far. Do you think the fact that it only had one entrance, again, putting the weather aside, because that, I'm definitely sure that had a little bit of an impact on the slowness of which people had driven that day, was part of that, to cause that, do you think? Because it was only one entrance?
This is probably one of the worst parking lots to work with when you're talking about such a facility like this. Logistically, we can't deal with multiple entrances, because every time you add an entrance, you have to add an officer. There's just no way around it. If you're giving them multiple choices, then you have two influx of vehicles coming in at the same time. They're gonna be fighting for the same spots. If we keep it at one entrance, it should flow somewhat easier. Even with the officer posted at the exit point, allowing cars to go out, there was still issues with a police officer posted, with cars trying to sneak in because they didn't want to wait in line.
I do think the weather, you can't, I don't think you can justifiably say putting the weather conditions aside, because one of the impacts on this election too was the fact that we were minus the assistance of the DPW crew. They were up plowing the roads. So once they cleared the church parking lot one time, they set up the dividers, they were gone. I didn't see them again. And we had a lot of problems outside of parking and traffic just due to that. But one of them also was that it continued to snow throughout the course of the day, which was unexpected, unanticipated. That was not supposed to happen. And the DPW crew certainly could not come back to continue to clear the parking lot. You know, number one, they're out doing the public access roads, and also there's cars now parked at the church, so there's just no way to clear it off. So there was a continual accumulation of snow and conditions that blocked the passageway, you know, and the driving conditions. And even in the back, I know there were some mounds of snow that made actually driving, if you wanted to continue to the very rear of that back parking lot to circle around, you couldn't because of the snowbanks there. So I think a lot of it was impacted, definitely,
By the weather.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
The other thing too, I'm sorry, Mr. Joel, the other thing is, we didn't have any church functions this day. And we have to keep that in the back of our minds. Every time there's an election, if there's a funeral or a service, we have to allow ample parking on that east lot for the parishioners. So we didn't put that into the mix, but that's a very strong possibility next time we have an election, that's something else we're gonna have to deal with.
I think we've dealt with that, and, well, not dealt with it, that's been addressed, and I don't think there's been, my recollection, there hasn't been an election where there has been a church function.
The church will try to accommodate
Right.
our schedules when they
Right.
know them ahead of time. Of course, in December, it was a holy day, the
Right.
state picked that date, and we had 3 masses to contend with, and that was an indoor problem more than anything. You know, we had a lot of logistics indoors too, but, you know, we're not here for that. In January, there is one church mass daily, you know, which I didn't realize, as I'm not a parishioner of St. Teresa's, but there is always a 9 a.m. mass. So that's a small consideration to have, you know, at least knowing that that occurs every day. And the top of the lot, the south side of the east lot near 62, is what we want to reserve for parishioners so that they can attend mass at least.
The 9 o'clock mass, most of the parishioners park on the west lot anyway.
By the rectory?
Yeah,
Right.
that's where most of them park.
Barbara, if we want to go forward with this change, one of the things that, you know, why did we do this? We did this because we estimated we saved some money. So,
Well,
now I also know that that was probably, you know, one of the biggest elections we'll have short of a presidential election, perhaps.
when the plan was proposed to consolidate and centralize the locations, what my proposal was, and I know that you gentlemen were coming to this on the hope of saving money, but, you know, having been to this location when only half of the town voted there, you know, and knowing what the police have witnessed too, I didn't think it was possible, and I did stress that at that time. In my proposal, when I did a table, a chart of costs, did indicate that, this plan would still need outdoor safety
Yes, you did say
officers
that.
there.
But, I mean, the
So
issue here is, maybe there's two reasons why we wanted to do this. One was that we thought we could save some money, and two was that having it in one location had some advantages from your staffing and control point of view. So if we can't meet those goals, then we have to rethink what we've done. But I'm not ready to just throw it under the bus at this point. I think if you have a better suggestion, since that was a worst-case scenario, perhaps a worst-case scenario, of coming up with a better situation for dealing with the traffic, then, we ought to give that a try before we make any decision to do
I
otherwise.
agree.
John, and then,
Do you think, one thing that struck me when I pulled in to vote, I just thought there was a lack of signage that was visible to someone who was pulling in for the first time and had no idea. As you pulled in, it looked like there was 3 different locations where you could park. There was no real rhyme or reason to it, and no real signage out there. And, I pulled in, it was, it's January, it's about 5:45, it was dark, a whole host of issues, but I didn't see, in my opinion, sufficient signage, which could lead to some of these problems and could eliminate them if we add some signage in that area.
I put this on the website, both plans, one for December and one for January, which were slightly differently configured because of the holy day and the masses, and this one for January. I put an ad in the paper. I had.
No, I know, but I'm talking about,
purchased some signage for the outside, certainly a lot of signage on the inside, but the traffic flow at the church is pretty well known if you have been a resident of the town.
sure, the flow is, but in terms of where you can park to vote, I think it can be better delineated.
That changed, though. I mean, that changed this time, the first 2 elections. We changed the configuration of the
Yeah.
parking lot for people. It's always been stacked parking. It's always been just whatever the lines are
No,
on the
but-
church
No,
parking.
No, I know,
lot.
I'm talking about when you get there, though. I think there should be some signage telling people,
We had,
How you can
Mr.
park.
Kennedy, we had a lot of people that, even though it was advertised and on the website and in the newspaper, this plan showing, please don't park here, this is for the rectory on the west side, the rear parking's for the election workers. We had voters parking everywhere. We had
well, that's what I mean.
But
I know you try to do what you could beforehand in terms of website and in the newspaper, but you're assuming everyone who's going to vote has read those things or gone onto the website. I think actual signage at the location on the day to vote would assist in curbing some of these issues that we are having.
one sign that I did purchase for the outside was as you approach the east lot from the rear. And we were making this a new configuration to try to have traffic go down both sides of the dividing lines, the cones. And I did have a sign there with arrows showing both ways.
When I pulled in, could I tell you, in the northeast side of that parking lot, there was 2 cars parked. You couldn't get around to the far east side of that parking lot.
Unfortunately, I think.
There was no signage, there was just 2 cars parked right there. You couldn't get down that far east side.
We had people parking in the rear, holding up traffic, because they just wanted to get in and vote. I don't think these number of signs you have out are going to have
John,
persons
with all-
pay attention.
Yeah, and same with the line as Barbara was talking, today, with all the road closed, we had 15 roads closed in North Reading today, with barrels, cones, caution tape, signs. 90% of them were taken down by the drivers, and everyone was driving right through the house. They don't listen to signs or heed warnings, all day long. we
well,
just
that
set
doesn't
up
mean
all
you
barrels.
don't put them up, though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think it would help. I honestly do, that if I'm pulling in and I'm not sure where I need to park, and I see a spot, I'm gonna park. If I see a sign that says, me personally, if I see a sign that says, no voter parking, I'm not going to park there. I am going to assume as I go around, there's gonna be an area for me to park and vote. And I don't think we can assume that everyone's going to read the paper or go on the website, unfortunately. I just think it will help, that's all.
Jeff had
Yes,
raised.
I think, if I'm reading this whole thing correctly, we're here about going forward anyway. We're not here to talk, we learned from the past, but we're looking to go forward, correct? And I think your suggestion here is to simply do the parking as you normally would, all right? This way you only get it with the assumption that you only get about 3 cars in a row, and they may have to wait. So I think you want to basically keep it the same, everything the same as this, except take that line out and just have them just go, okay? And then, and that's one recommendation, and it would appear to me that it would work. I agree with Sean, you know, signage, I think, is key, because we can all be oblivious of what we've read and what we should do, and people just sometimes forget about what they should do, unfortunately. So I think the signage would be very important, especially on the turnaround point, because that area was blocked, as I recall, later on. Earlier in the day, it was okay. You know, after that, I had an opportunity to be at the senior center. I spoke to a lot of seniors, because I was concerned about, you know, what was their experience, you know, how did they feel about it? And I spoke to 37 seniors, and all but one said that it was a problem. All of them said it was easy, it was easy access, they didn't have a problem. And I asked them, you know, what times did they go? And, you know, someone at 8:30, someone at 9, someone at 4, you know, they were pretty well spread out, but they were all, it was all positive feedback that I got from them. And I think, as you say, in going forward, I think that's really worth for us to look at. I drew up something as well, you know, to add as an idea for ideas, okay? I'm gonna give this one to you. Please ignore what's on the back, it's just, it's my scrap paper, but I'll pass the rest to everyone else, just to give you an idea of, pass me down, please, of another alternative. Okay, and the idea, I asked a question about whether we thought possibly only one entrance, I'm sorry. The question was, you know, was only one entrance also part of the backup? We know that the weather had an impact, but, and I don't know how often we have December elections either, that we have to worry about snow. You know, that's a little bit of an aberration, I believe. But do you recall when was the last time we had a December?
It would just be special elections.
Right.
We certainly don't have any scheduled ones, but we have scheduled elections in March. Every 4 years, we have a presidential primary. So, you know, never say never, but they're
Right.
not common. They're not a yearly occurrence.
And so this is just an idea, you know, to add onto the mix. And it was based on the conversation that I had with Bob. Now, the east entryway, that's an awfully wide entryway. And it would seem to me that you could put a divider down there and you enter through to the right and come out from the left as you look at it. The west entryway, the traffic doesn't even have to go to the right. It can park on the back left and exit even on the normal exit for that driveway. And I went there and I didn't know that there was a driveway there, but there are arrows there pointing, showing exit this way. So you can go that way. So you'd have less traffic on both sides of the church, or the polling booths. You'd have less traffic on both sides, and maybe that would help the flow of traffic. And then I did a number on my numbers there reflect how many spots were on each side. But it's just an idea, you know.
We had discussed the rear parking lot when we were trying to set this plan up before December. And we really wanted to reserve that for election workers. Because you're talking about 50 in a day. So, you know, if you were to look at your numbers there for the lanes and figure 2 cars per lane, you know, our election workers will eat up most of that. And also, we wanted to save that rear parking for the church staff that would be doing business or functions in the parish hall addition. So they would park in the rear and enter there, or park by the rectory, but certainly the rear parking lot is closest to them. So we were really avoiding putting out the rear parking lot for any